Frances here from Hapa Community Arts. I hope you all had fun exploring with wild art last week. This week we're going to be using materials from nature again, but in a slightly different way. Now we're going to be doing a technique called Zome. Now it sounds like a very strange word. It was invented by a lady called India Flint, who was working in Japan as an artist and wanted to recreate the forest floor in her studio. So she would spend her time hammering and crushing and smushing lots of leaves onto a piece of cloth that would then resemble a forest floor. So what she used was the natural colour of leaves, flowers, things like that, to stain her fabric. Now the technique has been very popular. It can be used in lots of different ways. You can use it to explore the patterns, the colours and the smells of leaves and flowers, and even berries and spices, which is what we're going to do. Now you don't need fabric, but if you have an old sheet, any old fabric in the house, it could be an old t-shirt perhaps you don't use anymore, but it needs to be light coloured. You can also use cardboard, paper, or even kitchen roll. And we're going to use different colours of flowers, and I'm going to find my flowers in my garden, but again, if you're out and about on your walks, you could perhaps find them then. But remember, don't pick too many, and if they don't belong to you, don't pick them from other people's gardens. Just make sure you find the things that are wild, such as daisies and dandelions. They're really good. Dandelions make some excellent yellow colours. Now I'm going to put together a few materials that you can use, and I'll talk you through them. But yeah, so this week we're going to be doing some Hapa Zome. Hello everybody, welcome back. It's Frances here. Okay, so in front of me here I have got my setup for the Hapa Zome art activity. Now as with last week and wild art, these are just suggestions. This is a great opportunity for you to really observe colours, shapes, textures of the things that are growing around you, and find the things that really work for you. Find your favourite colours perhaps. Use your imagination. So this is a setup which has got some bits and pieces that you might have at home, which I'll talk you through now. So okay, so here we have some fabric. This is calico. It's a kind of very plain unbleached cotton that you can get in fabric shops. It's also kind of similar to what your bed sheets might be made of, what pillowcases are made of. So if you have any old sheets that are lying around, you could use those. Any old jeans perhaps that have gone and you don't use them anymore, don't wear them anymore, and they're light coloured, you could use those. Even old t-shirts, tea towels even, if you really kind of want to use the fabric texture for this activity. If you don't want to use fabric or you don't have any, not a problem. We've got paper over here, just some white A4 paper, also brown envelopes, bits of cardboard and a brown paper bag, all of which will print nicely using this hammering technique. Also, if you have a piece of cardboard, maybe something that has been arrived in a delivery, just poke that on the floor, because if we're hammering, the texture of the paving comes up when you're hammering, and can affect the texture of the print that we make. Now you might like that texture, that's perfectly fine, so we can move on to the paving, and I'll show you a paving print in a little while. Just here we've got our tools. So we've got a wooden block, a small kind of wooden hammer which I use from a pestle mortar. This is a mallet that people use for camping. They're very cheap, probably a couple of pounds, and we use those. It's got a rounded end which helps with the hammering and the flattening of the leaves and flowers against whatever surface you're using. And if you don't have any of those things, a big rock will do, so don't worry about that. If you do have another hammer that you use in the house, you're welcome to use those, one of the metal hammers, but just be careful with that. Be careful with all of them, watch your fingers. But anything that will flatten and crush onto the fabric is great to use. Okay, so now to the good part. So what have I collected in my bowl here? So you will see I've got some dandelions here. I've also collected some leaves from kind of the yellow poppies that grow. They grow a lot in my garden, and the leaf texture is really soft. It's really, really good for crushing. You might discover while you're trying different leaves and flowers that some things work better than others. That's absolutely fine. This is all about trial and error. There are no mistakes. This is just an opportunity to explore and try different things, and you can just try again and again and again. So continuing what we've got in here, so we've got the dandelions, you can see a couple of daisies in there. We've got a primrose flower that's coming to the end of its life, so I picked that from my garden. Got some blueberries from my fridge, some mint over here, some rosemary, and I've also got a little bit of lavender in there. So when we crush those, they'll make a beautiful smell. Now, oh, and also this beautiful pink flower, which I get to grow in my garden. It's kind of from the rhododendron family, I think. So all of those make a beautiful thing in itself, really. All those beautiful colours, different shapes, different colours, and lots of green. I really like using green with Hapa Zome. Leaves make some really interesting textures and different tones as well. Over here I've also got some dried herbs. So what I've got in there is some lavender and some cloves and some, I think, dried parsley, dried thyme as well. You can't really see that, but it's in there. So again, this is a sensory element to the Hapa Zome. This is can make some beautiful smells. Over here I've already done a couple of examples, so you get an idea of the kind of thing that can be made. Now over here I've got one here that's made on the fabric, and I've thought about mirroring. So I placed my materials in the middle, folded over and hammered on there, and you can see that it's made quite a beautiful picture. It's not particularly neat, but you can see some of the shapes here and of the colours I've used. That's just one example. Over here it's a little bit more rough and ready. This is using the blueberries over here and a leaf. This is on paper, on white paper. So again, it's a different element to it. While you're doing this activity, depending on age, depending on what you like to do, your outcome and what you enjoy will be really different, and that's perfectly fine. Some children want to make a big smelly mess with it. They might just enjoy the hammering process more than the printing outcome. That again, perfectly fine. This is all about exploring. Older children and yourselves as adults might want to make something more ornate, and that's great. So let's start with my cloth here. I'm going to be doing this one-handed, so just bear with me. So I'm going to put a mint leaf onto here, because again, it's a really nice soft texture. Now I'm going to use my folding technique, so everything I do is going to be on one side of the cloth, then I'm going to fold it over and then I'm going to hammer it. I'm going to put my primrose just there and flatten it out. Now some of the flowers might have this green stalk on the back of it. That's fine, it can work. Sometimes that can make it a little bit wet and the colours aren't as clear, can become a little bit watered down. So if you want to take that off and press your flower down, that's fine. What else should we put on there? And why not a dandelion? So you'll see that the dandelions, they've got lots of little small petals, which again is fine, and it's got the stalk on the back. Now I'm going to take some of those petals off, because that way the colour comes out a little more true, and I avoid things getting a little bit wet. It's a little bit windy today, so I'm chancing it with being outside. All of this you're able to do all of this when you're inside, obviously. There we go. And actually a little bit of a dandelion leaf, because again the dandelion leaves are a great soft texture, quite sort of fresh and new at the minute, so they are quite soft and they will hammer really nicely. Okay, so it's all on one side, and then I'll fold over my fabric, sandwich it in there, press it down, and I'm going to use my mallet here to start hammering, and you'll see straight away you should get some colours coming up. So yeah, we can see the primrose petals work really nicely. Under here, starting to get some of the mint coming up. Okay, I'm going to continue hammering. I'll be with you in a second. Okay, so did a little bit more hammering. You needed 2 hands for that. Holding the camera wasn't quite working. And you can see here how we've got the ink marks. Well, ink and sort of the leaves have died, have been crushed on this side and left behind some beautiful marks here. We've got the green from the mint and the dandelion. Some of the dandelion petals blew away, sadly, but that's okay. And we've also got the beautiful purple here from the primrose flower. So obviously this can be done in a very, very detailed way, or it can be done quite freely, and you can use things and just see what smells they make, what shapes they make, and so on. if I move my bowl out the way, this is what can happen when we use the paving. Now this might actually dye the paving, which isn't so bad. It would be quite interesting. This is an experiment for me too. So I've got my hammer again, and I'm going to hammer the leaf that's just under there. Okay, you're getting this in real life time. You can see there it's picking up the kind of bumpy texture of the ground underneath, which is fun in itself. You can really get going on this. It's quite therapeutic. Some children will absolutely love using the tools, and they'll think, what on earth are we doing? But this is brilliant. So embrace that. It's using real tools to explore and make artworks, and that's a really fun thing to do. So we'll peel that back, see what happens. So actually what we've got is the leaf has been really battered onto here, which in itself looks lovely, and we've also got a bit of staining on the ground, and of course this will wash away when the rains come, which inevitably they will. So we've got some more examples over here. Now let me take some of my blueberries, and I'll take some of my herbs. I've got my rosemary there and my mint. Now for younger children, like I say, it's all about smushing it up and seeing what smells and what we can see. So it's possible to just hammer this straight on to the cardboard. So we can do that here, and you can see that that is very messy indeed. But for a young child to get to use a hammer or even a rock to really smash up those colours and see if they can recognise the smells as something that they use day to day. For example, the mint, some children will recognise that as toothpaste. And then what we've got here is a really smushed up sensory play experience, which is fantastic. Now this is an opportunity to really take some time to be mindful and look around you, and pick things that catch your eye, that are really beautiful. Now I'm going to have a go with this one. I haven't actually used this before, so let me go back to my piece that I'd used before, lay that on there. Let's see how this works, because I haven't used one of those flowers before. So let's go. Okay, so you can really see that that is a very pleasing, satisfying pigment coming out there. Beautiful colour. So let's peel that back. Now a lot of these will need to dry a little while before you start to peel off the excess, but some of it comes off quite easily. Now those colours are beautiful, so for older children or adults you can definitely create some really beautiful detailed images. Now these pigments will stay on here for quite some time. I've got some Hapa Zome that I've had for about a year, and they're still relatively bright, but they do fade away eventually when they've had exposure to light. But that just means that you can go out next year or in the autumn and explore some more. Okay, so this is Hapa Zome. Hope that's given you a little insight into the ways you can explore with it, that there's no set outcome. It's just finding what you and your family like to do and really embracing it and see what we can find and what we can create. So please do share your images if you do some Hapa Zome. We're on Facebook and on Instagram as High Peak Community Arts. And that's it from us this week. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.